All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm happy to be back. Happy to see a few faces that I saw last Friday and some new ones as well. Again, this is being recorded, but it's just recording me, so you guys are not on camera. So you're good there. Forgive me because of that recording. I'm just going to stay put right here. Normally, I'd kind of wander around a little bit more, so I'd be kind of stationary though. But this is intended to be fairly open-ended. We're a nice small group, so I invite questions as we're going along. And even if you just have something that you've thought about that's not even necessarily too related to what we're talking about, as long as we're kind of in that probate estate context, please feel free to shoot up your hand and let's hear your question. I've got these materials that I've prepared. They're a little bit on the longer side. There's some good detail in there. I'm going to be loosely following them. Just kind of as we go through the presentation today about probate. What is it? What are some of the concerns that it raises? What do we do with this thing called probate? But if I may, real quick, and again, I know Ellen and Luis and Jim from last week, but can I ask Judy? Thanks for coming, Judy. What interests you in probate today?
Property, maybe when the property has to go through probate, if you have people like our children.
Okay.
But the whole what does and what doesn't.
Okay. When is probate necessary? All right. Very good. And back here?
I'm Ruth, and I just want to know everything I can before I get there.
I'm going to write down wants to be prepared. That's good. Excellent. Thank you for coming, Ruth.
And I like your answer. Yeah.
We got a ditto on that. Very good. Thanks, Debbie.
I'm here with my daughter, and it looks beautiful. That's it.
Okay. Very good.
Jack, Charlie, I don't know about probate. Just wanted to see if we can keep having to go through probate after it got.
Gotcha. Thank you, Jack.
I'm Lisa, and I'm here because I don't understand package that the lawyer gave us together for this stuff. And what happens when this is I don't know. I just know stuff from California.
Okay.
Because of my parents, they have, and my sisters down there, they all have trusts, this and that, and everything else, and they're saying you don't have to worry about that. And probate's no big deal. It's just a bunch of paperwork. And yeah, don't worry about it. So I'm worried anyway.
Sure. Yeah. Whenever somebody tells you don't worry, right? That's the cue to start worrying about something. You said you got a packet.
I talked to a lawyer, and I think it's even before I retired.
Okay.
He was retired, and gave him a packet, and he said, okay, and there's this list, and every time we take it out, my husband just finally took it out.
Oh, okay.
But and he just like penciled in some things.
Is this for your own planning then? For you and your husband? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
We're way behind the times. We don't have anything.
You're in good company. There are many in your situation. Very good. All right. Well, good. Well, I'm going to go ahead and jump into it then and just kind of give you a little bit of a framework for our discussion today. And the starting point here is simply like this probate boogeyman, right? Which I think a lot of you are kind of feeling that, like, what is this probate thing? Why are people telling me it's this thing I should avoid? I don't even know what it is, right? And it's definitely a boogeyman because it's something that we don't know much about. And so because we don't know much about it, it frightens us and it scares us. And so that's hence the title of today's presentation, Shining a Light on the Probate Boogeyman, so it can dissipate and not become so scary anymore, right? So you'll see there at the bottom of page 1, if you got the materials, I've listed out a few different questions or concerns that a lot of people have in this context, right? I'm just going to go ahead and read them through here. The government's going to get all my property after I die. My family's going to fight over my property when I'm dead. My property is going to be tied up in probate for years. The person in charge of wrapping up my estate after my death won't be who I want. Death taxes will consume a lot of the property I leave behind. Legal fees will eat up the value of my property after my death, right? Those are very typical questions that I field from people and from clients. Hopefully we'll be able to address those today, or at least some of them today. And if we want to drill down and be a little bit more specific about any of those, we certainly can. Again, just as a starting point, what is probate in the first place, right? So the word probate comes from, I'm getting remembering my etymology correctly, it comes from a Latin term that means to prove, right? And so probate is the process of proving to the court that that a person's passed away, and more specifically that the will that they left behind is valid. So that's where the word itself comes from. You're proving to the court that there's this valid will of a person who's passed away, right? Now, attached to all of that is a much longer process of, okay, now that the court has the will, what do we do, right? And so probate is this process that, in a nutshell, is about if a person has a will, getting it to the court, having the court find that it's valid, and just as importantly, appointing somebody to be in charge of the estate of the person who's passed away, so that somebody can step into the shoes of the deceased person and get things figured out, right? Make sure that debts are paid, taxes are paid, and that the property that the deceased person left behind gets to who it's supposed to get to, right? And again, that's kind of probate in a nutshell, and there are lots of ins and outs and details that go along with that. But as a snapshot, that's what we're looking at. That's what probate is, right? There are a few words here that are important to remember, and I'm gonna use these just because I'm accustomed to using them. The term decedent refers to a person who's passed away. That's the legal term. So I don't have to say deceased person all the time. I'm going to say decedent. There's also the term testate. Testate means to die with a will, right? So if you hear of somebody dying testate, that means they had a will. If you hear about somebody dying intestate, that means they died without a will. And so I may be using those terms testate, intestate as well. Typically, you want to die testate. It gives you more control. You'll have a will that can spell out your wishes, who you want to be in charge, who's supposed to get property. If you die intestate, then your estate plan is created by the legislature of the state of Washington, who's laid out their rules for who gets what, right? And who gets to be in charge of your estate. Another important distinction that we want to make, again, just to kind of set a framework here, is the difference between what we call probate property and non-probate property. And for those that were here last week when we were talking about estate planning, we covered this a little bit, that in this world, we're talking about two different categories or buckets of assets. You've got assets that we apply the label probate property to, and assets that we apply the label non-probate property to. And probate assets or probate property, those are the types of assets that are going to be controlled by your will. Non-probate assets or non-probate property, that's what's going to be controlled by other things that you have in place that direct where those assets are supposed to go. So easiest way to go over this is to list some examples of things, of what's probate property, what's non-probate property, because it's only the probate property that's going to be part of the probate procedure in court. All the non-probate stuff is going to be taken care of in other ways, right? So who here has some sort of retirement account? Just about everybody, right? Those retirement accounts, whether it's a 401k or an IRA or a 403b, whatever it may be, those are almost always non-probate accounts because you have beneficiaries designated on those retirement accounts. And those beneficiary designations are what's going to control where the assets in those accounts go at your death, right? So because of those beneficiary designations, they're taken away from the will. They have nothing to do with the will, and they all go according to those beneficiary designations. Please, if you have retirement accounts, please, please, please put beneficiaries on your retirement accounts. Retirement accounts are horrible assets to have in the probate context. If you don't put beneficiary designations on them, they're just very troublesome. Okay, so another example would be life insurance policies. Those that have life insurance policies, you're almost always going to have beneficiaries named for those life insurance policies. Those beneficiary designations are going to control where those policies go. They're non-probate assets, right? Other ones that you might not think of are going to be joint accounts, like joint bank accounts or joint brokerage accounts or joint investment accounts. Especially if you hold those with a spouse, they're almost always going to be joint tenancy with right of survivorship, meaning that when one owner dies, the other owner gets everything that's in the account. Because that's set up that way, it's a non-probate asset because it's controlled by the joint tenancy or the joint ownership. It doesn't really have anything to do with the will, right? So yes, Ruth, right?
Yeah.
Please fire away.
Can I ask you about payable upon death?
Mm-hmm.
I have a living mom.
Yep.
Named the person.
Yep.
She will be the last. My dad died. So all of her estate will go into that. But her bank account is a POD.
POD.
So what happens with, is that non-probate or probate?
Non-probate. Yep. A POD, a pay on death, or a TOD, a transfer on death, also non-probate because there's this other legal mechanism out there that's pointing to where the asset goes when the account holder dies. So good question. Yeah. So, yep, non-probate. Yep. So we've talked about these non-probate assets. So what would be some examples of probate assets? What actually gets controlled by the will? Because this is a common misconception, right? People think, hey, this is great. I've got a will. My will spells out where I want everything to go. I'm done, right? I've done it. And I wish it were that simple. But your will does not end up controlling all your assets, and sometimes doesn't even control the majority of your assets because of these non-probate assets and designations and PODs and TODs and joint ownership things that we have, right? So your will is going to kind of pick up everything else that hasn't otherwise been addressed. So the big ticket item in probate is real estate, and especially your home, because you're almost always going to own your home in your own name. And there's not anything else that signals where your ownership interest in your home is supposed to go when you die, right? There's no beneficiary designation form that you're filling out for your house. Your will acts as that beneficiary designation form. So your will is what controls where your ownership interest in your home goes, right? Typically. If you are, for whatever reason, hiding a bunch of cash out underneath your shed, you know, because you're a hired assassin or something, I don't want to hear about it, but cash, if you're holding on to a lot of cash for whatever reason, cash is a probate asset. There's nothing about that cash that directs where it's supposed to go when you die, right? If you have a bank account and you're the only one on it and you do not have any beneficiaries on it, there's no TOD or POD on it, that's a probate asset.